Hello, this is your instructor Stephen Burns at Chromolution.com, and we're going to explore controlling contrast using your mask. So we're going to be doing a contrast masking technique. Not a new technique, it's a pretty old one, but I think it's a pretty powerful one for understanding how to use your channels and alpha channels to control contrast. Here's a shot I took over in Joshua Tree National Park. And the idea here is, if we kind of zoom in a little closer, is to basically control these highlights a little bit better. So we can see have a nice dark area, extreme dark areas here, and the brighter areas have much better detail, a lot of detail. However, we can get even more information there. Oftentimes, when we see an image that has highlights with detail, we get the idea that okay, that's fine, and it may not be fine. And let's explore the possibilities here. Let's just zoom in just a little bit closer than that. There we are. Now, let's go ahead and duplicate our layer. Hit Command Control J, and let's utilize our layer blend modes to assist us in this endeavor. If we take a look at our various modes, the idea here is to control the highlights. To control the highlights, we're probably going to want to look over in here, particularly the multiply, but we'll go through all of them. Darken keeps everything normal. And if I go down to the next one, multiply, look. Multiply infuses more detail and color within your image. So if we kind of move around the image here and take a look at the highlight areas, we can see we have a lot more color and a lot more detail. So as we move down, color burn is a little too much contrast. We're starting to affect the highlights within these areas. We don't want to blow those out. And if we go to linear burn, that's a little too rich. So sometimes going further down, as you go further down, the contrast is affected more. Again, your lighten areas are going to brighten things up. We'll go ahead and give it a screen. That we're not interested in that, obviously. And we're most definitely not interested in the overlay, because that's increasing contrast, which will blow out my highlights and blow out my shadows. You want to make sure that you maintain or pay strict attention to shadows, midtones, and highlights. In this example, we're going to control the highlights. So let's go back over here to multiply. This is going to be my choice. It gives you a nice addition to your details and in the brighter areas, and it infuses some color in there as well. Now, what I want to do is control where this multiply layer is going to apply its effects. I want to apply it to more of the highlight areas and not to the darker areas. So let's go over here and give it a layer mask. Okay, so now that we have a mask, I'm going to pull this out a little bit more so that you can see it. Now that we have a layer mask, what I want to do is apply actually one of these channels to this mask to help me create my contrast masking technique. So let's go ahead and turn everything off but this channel. We're going to take a look at each of our channels: red, green, and blue. Now, using our professional insight here, which one of these channels separate the highlights more from everything else? The red, the green, or the blue? So obviously the blue makes everything very medium gray, takes to a mid-gray range, so that does not separate the two that well. Green does it a little better. However, if you take a look at the red, it is much more of an extreme contrast between that, the sky, and everything else. So we're going to utilize this red channel, and we're going to place it over into this mask here. So I'm going to select the mask, and there we go, and make sure it's highlighted. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the apply image command, which basically means take an image from somewhere else and apply it to the very area that you have selected. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the image from the red channel, and all the red channel is an image made up of 256 shades of gray, because we're working in an 8-bit environment. So we're going to take the tonal information or the image from the red channel and place it into our layer mask. So how do we do that? Image, apply the image, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure this is in normal mode, and we're going to apply what? We're going to apply the red channel. Okay, there it is. Take a look at it here. We're taking a red channel in the normal blend mode at 100% opacity and putting it right into here. And if you take a look at our image, we've controlled our contrast. Now watch, before and after. Before, and after, before and after. Let's click OK. Now, let's take a look at this with the mask, actually with a before and after without this layer and its mask. So turn off the eye, before and after, before and after. Okay, so we're not done yet. What we've done, if we hold the Option or Alt click on the mask, is we transferred the red channel into this layer mask. Now let's increase the contrast in here. What if we want more of an effect to the highlights and even less of effect to everywhere else? What we're going to do is we're going to apply a curve to this. So very easy. Command M for man. Let's pull this up over here, and I can pull it down this way for the shadows and pull a point up toward the highlights, and that's going to increase my contrast. Alright, so what is this doing physically? Alright, let's go ahead and cancel this temporarily, and let's Alt or Option click back on the mask to toggle or view here, and let's go ahead, and I'm using the Option and Alt and spacebar together to pull in so we can get a little closer look at this. And if we Command M, making sure that my mask is selected, we're going to do the same thing. Pull this down, pull the shadow portions of it down, okay, which means it's going to mask out the effects of the multiply more. But if you pull the highlights up, it's going to allow the multiply effects to happen more in the highlights and less in this area. And as you can see, we're starting to control the contrast between each area, but we're also adding more detail. Okay, there we are. I'm going to make it reasonable here. I'm just going to play with the curve to get what you want. Alright, let's go ahead and click OK and zoom in a little closer and take a look at this. Pretty nice, huh? A lot more detail in your highlights, and it's controlling it much more in relationship to your shadow areas. Now, we're not done yet. Let's add one final technique, and I'm going to get in. We're at 100% right now. We know that. It's right down here in the corner. It's telling us 100%. And because this mask creates these nice harsh edges, it's pretty much in exact registration to our details on the image, we want to soften up these edges. And watch what happens when we soften up these edges so that this mask will blend a lot more effectively. I'm going to my filter menu, again making sure the mask is selected. Blur, let's select Gaussian blur, and let's give it a little more of a blur, and watch what's going to happen. Take a look at the image. Alright, take a look at this detail here especially. Now I'm going to turn off the preview. Before, you see it get softer, and after, it's sharpening up. I'm going to do it again. Before and after. In fact, let's kind of get in a little closer. That might be a little too close, but we'll give it a try anyway. Before and after, before and after. And let's go ahead and zoom down just a little bit more. Let's hit a, there we are. Let's pull it around. Let's go to here, and I'm going to add a little more blur and see what happens. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. There we go. I'm a little bit beyond 100%, but you might be able to see it a little better. Let's go right here in the edges. There we go. That's with it, without it. With it, without it. So by blurring that mask, you're adding apparent sharpness to it without unsharp mask. You look here on the edges, we're starting to see a slight halo. That's because we're basically blurring too much. So bring down the blur there. Okay? So before and after, before and after. There. Okay. So you've learned how to control contrast in any photographic image that you have, and you've learned how to apply apparent sharpness to the image by applying a Gaussian blur to our layer mask. I hope this has been helpful. Come back for more tutorials. There's a lot more soon to come.